what do you think the biggest mistake? You're working with clients every day of the week. You're working with some of the best athletes in the world, on average, Joes and Janes, like, Sarah, when she came to you. Is there a common mistake that you see most people making?
A lot of people get caught up in all the noise and the trendy stuff and the stuff that sounds like sexy and cool, and that, the people in the pro tour are doing, and they think they should be doing that. So that's why I talk about, like, you probably don't need 120 grams of carbohydrates for every hour of your exercise, that kind of thing for the average person. Or also, the mistake that people make is they think that they need to go from here, which is their current baseline, to ideally where they want to be, which is here. And they do that in the matter of 2 days. And then they get discouraged because it feels horrible or it doesn't work or it's too complicated. So people need to start small. They need to start with the extra 25 grams of carbs or the extra 100 calories, or they need to start with having that recovery shake after their effort before they get in the shower, before they end up sitting in the computer for another 2 hours and getting distracted and then being like, oh shoot, I forgot my recovery. So people need to start small to make it sustainable and fit it into their life in a way that they're going to be able to do it consistently and notice a difference, rather than be like, oh, I have to be here, so I'm going to try to do that tomorrow. And then they give up and they just revert back to their old ways.
Yeah, I heard a great expression from someone on the podcast. And his thing was, he tries to get clients to move away from all or nothing and move towards all or something. It's like, I love that expression, because so many people think like, oh, I don't have a big enough vision. I don't have a big enough goal. And it's like, next year I'm going to break the world error record. And it's like, how about just like find your shoes? Like, let's start with something real small. How about just ride to the cafe and come back? And then when that's normalized, then we can ride a little further than the cafe. And it's not a glamorous message. Before we finish up, this is something that's, I guess, trending in popular culture at the moment. And I want to see if you had a hot take on it, because so many athletes do struggle with being overweight, and Ozempic is pitched as this magic pill. And we're not all pro athletes. We're not all talking about 80 to 120 grams. A lot of people's reality is it's a lot more. Their obesity or their extra 10, 20, 30 pounds, it's more of a lifestyle consideration and a performance consideration. Have you thought about Ozempic, if it has a use, or you think it's like totally to be avoided?
It has a use for some people, but for most of the time, there are so many other things that they can do before they get to Ozempic, right? So with Ozempic, it's like, the worst thing you can probably do is try to do Ozempic on your own and not consider all the other factors that come into play if you truly want to make this a lifestyle change, right? Because that's really what it comes down to, is like, is it even worth doing something that's going to last for a short period of time and then you're going to go back to your old ways? In my opinion, probably not. Like, we're here to do these things for a lifestyle change. And if we're looking for a quick fix that's going to give us results for the next 6 months, but we're not going to get into all the other nuances that make us a human and an individual, then we're missing a big mark here. So it's an interesting thing, but we are just more complex physiological, psychological beings than what an Ozempic injection is going to do for us most of the time. And there are so many other layers that come into play there if you are considering using Ozempic that you need to consider to make this a successful experience overall.
Yeah, I worry as well. Like, I guess it's a cost-benefit analysis. Like, if you're, chronically obese, you're pre-diabetic, you have limited mobility, maybe it makes sense to take Ozempic now and have it roll the dice on the long-term effects. But if you're someone who hasn't got those and you're just carrying some stubborn weight and you haven't, really rolled up your sleeve or sought professional advice from coaches, trainers, nutritionists, psychologists, like, what's the 10-year consequences of taking Ozempic? Like, none of us know. And it's like, maybe just take a back seat and see how that plays out.
Exactly. That's really smart. Yes, we don't really know. And it's becoming this thing that's just used in so many levels.
I spoke to a surgeon a while ago on the podcast. His name escapes me. And he had a really interesting point on, he thinks cosmetic surgery should be accompanied with mandatory counseling, otherwise it's pointless. So if you get your nose fixed and your jaw fixed, but you don't change the way you see yourself, you're never going to be happy. And I kind of think the same maybe applies to Ozempic. If you see yourself as a fat person, you see yourself as an obese person, you see yourself as someone who has lifestyle limitations, even if you look in the mirror and you're skinny, I don't think that's going to change how you see yourself.
Absolutely. That's why with nutrition too, I always get into like, it's never just about the nutrition. It's never just about the macros and the calories and the grams of carbohydrates per hour. It's about what's your relationship with food? What is your inner dialogue? You know, what are the things that maybe your parents said to you when you were young that are shaping the way that you think about food now? All of that kind of stuff matters, because that is really what's consistent, right? Like, so much of our brain space is this inner dialogue, and a lot of it is negative. And if we don't address that when we're thinking about making these other changes, we're missing a massive piece of the puzzle here.
I think that was brilliant in one of your first answers where you talked about Haribo, that it's like you differentiated it immediately from eating Haribo on the bike when we need the fuel versus eating Haribo on the couch watching Netflix. Because implicit in that, it's a disarming of the morality that goes around food, where we start to tag foods as good and bad. That's just a really bad place to be.
Exactly. Yeah. There can be a time and a place for all that kind of stuff. You just have to know what that time and place is and be intentional about it.
Roadman, let me take a second to talk to you about Whoop. It's a wearable health and fitness coach that provides you with feedback and actionable insights into your sleep, recovery, training, stress, and overall health. It gives you insight into what's going on with your body. As cyclists, we love marginal gains. Whoop lets me chase those marginal gains. I can focus on 1% improvements in sleep, recovery, and training. But Whoop isn't just about training, it's about overall health. And your health underpins everything you do in your life. And Whoop helps you understand and proactively improve it through 24/7 monitoring. And that positively impacts all areas of your life. If you go to join.whoop.com/roadman, you're going to get a free month's Whoop membership on me. I promise you won't regret it. The details are in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please click up here. There's another video I know that you're absolutely going to love. Click over here and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our amazing upcoming guests.